mean, I could go all into any of these topics, and if ever you just want to chat about about some of the topics that you see here today, I love to talk about marketing in general. So I'm always happy to brainstorm with you or help you with that. So feel free to drop me a note. So I'm going to be talking about marketing for nonprofits. This is not like a huge area of work or research. So every time that you hear about marketing, it's always in relation to businesses. But there is increasingly more and more research and data and information coming out about nonprofit marketing. For people who work in marketing in the more traditional sense, like for businesses, this probably blows their mind to see this term even written somewhere, nonprofit marketing, because marketing is usually all about profit. But that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. How do we apply this concept of business and marketing to a nonprofit sector? I'm going to give you a quick introduction to some of the terms that you've probably heard in the world of marketing, but you might not know what they mean, because we're going to start by doing a little trivia in a moment. Then we will talk about how to apply marketing in a nonprofit and in scouting specifically. And then I'll share 3 things that you can start doing tomorrow that won't cost you any money to start implementing, to start getting your brain working in a way that is a little bit more marketing oriented in your communications approach. And then, as always, we'll leave time for questions. So I'm going to get you to get Slido open, and I'll give you a minute to do that. I'll drop the link as well in the chat, and I'm just going to share a different screen. We'll do a quick quiz and test your knowledge on, oh, are you sharing, Mihaela? Okay.
Yes.
That works. All right. Does everyone know how to use Slido? Does anyone need any help? So if the QR code doesn't work, you can also use that link there. So first, I just want to know, how much do you know about marketing? So if you're an expert in marketing, you would rate that a 5. If you don't know anything about marketing, rate it a 1. Let me know where you're at on that scale. No judgment. I'm not looking at who says what. I'm just curious to know where we're at. Okay, cool. This is good because we're going to get into an introduction. So it's nice to start off fresh. And I see a few people who do know quite a bit about it. So that's nice too. All right. Let's get into the first question. I'll prepare you for a little bit of silliness in this quiz. How is marketing different from communications? Is it that in marketing, you can share facts even if they aren't true? Is it that in marketing, the goal is to show the world that your competitors are terrible? In marketing, is the main goal to sell a product or service, or is marketing only on social media? Which of these is true? Okay, everyone got the answer right. Good job. The main difference, so marketing is a part of the communications team for sure, but a lot of communications is written not necessarily with a specific goal in mind to sell things, and that's what makes marketing different from other forms of communication, is that we're really focused on the concept of selling a product or service. All right, next question. All right, what does the term brand mean? Is it the marking a cow gets when it graduates from university? Is it the entire Apple product line? Or is it the way that an organization is perceived or experienced by potential members? So you'll notice I already changed the language from business-oriented to nonprofit-oriented by using terms like organization instead of corporation or business. All right, yes. So the answer is it is the way an organization is perceived or experienced by potential members. So a product isn't necessarily the brand, but a product would be branded. So the Apple brand is, for example, the logo is a part of that brand, but so is the whole look, like how their stores are all very streamlined and white and clean, and all of that is part of the brand. It's the way that you experience it. It's the fact that even if the logo wasn't there, you would still know that it's an Apple product just by the way that it is. And in scouting, this comes out in many different ways. Like you may notice that on our social media channels, especially on Instagram, we will rarely put our logo on our pictures. And that's because we don't want them to look like ads. And because the brand is not only our logo, it's who's in the photos. We're featuring young people, we're featuring diverse young people, we're featuring international events and friendship and camping and outdoors, community service. All of that is part of our brand. You can stop me if you have any questions. All right, so on a similar topic, what is brand awareness? Is it how aware the cow is about its marking? Is it the extent to which potential members are familiar with an organization? Or is it how aware a brand is about its own existence? Yeah, exactly. It's the extent to which potential members are familiar with an organization. And as you'll come to see, this is a really important and a very early step in branding. It's important to get people to know what your brand is and just enough like familiarity with it that they feel that they can trust your brand, that they can be loyal to your brand. So when we do an ad campaign, for example, usually you should start with an awareness phase, meaning if you've ever clicked on any ad that you've seen on Facebook before, it probably wasn't the first time you saw that ad. You probably saw several ads from that company before, and eventually you grew familiar with it, you grew aware of it. And then after seeing it enough times, maybe you even saw that some of your friends have liked or bought from them before, and then you really trusted it, then you clicked the ad. So that's the awareness phase. Right. Next question. All right. Fill in this blank. Rate is a measure of how many users took a certain action, like filling a form or clicking on a specific link. Is that the conversion rate, manipulation rate, hiking rate, or testing rate? All right, I think we can get more than 4 or 5 people answering. There's lots of people on this call. We're 20 here. There we go. So the answer is the conversion rate. And this is one of our favorite things to see a high number in marketing is conversion rate. It means that if somebody actually clicks on a link, for example, on a social media post, you might not know this, but it's actually very few people who will actually click on a link, say in a Facebook post. It's usually less than 1% of people who see it who will actually click on that link. So 0.9%, what we call click-through rate, is actually very good on a social media post. But then when you put yourself in the shoes of the consumer or the person on the other side, you might not be surprised, because how often do you actually click on links that you see online, right? So the idea here is to get as many people to take the action that we want them to take as possible. And whenever someone does take that action, we call that a conversion. All right, this one I think you might have heard before if you've been to any of the social media workshops. What do we mean by engagement? Is it when you are legitimately too busy binging dramas on Netflix to go out? Is it when 2 people get married? Or is it when website or social media visitors take actions like commenting or clicking on a link? See, we have someone funny in the room. I mean, the term engagement can actually mean all of these things, but in marketing, we are talking about the actions that people take, such as commenting or clicking on a link. We use this a lot when we refer to social media, which you can hear much more about next month. But every like, comment, clicking on a link, sharing a post, these are all considered engagements. All right, just two more. SEO stands for Search Every Object, Scouts Enjoying Outdoors, Search Engine Optimization, or Scouting Early October. Still have some funny people here. That's good. The answer is search engine optimization. I'm not going to get into this too much today, but just for your awareness, this is basically the practice of making sure that your website and other pages are easy to find on Google or any search engine. So you can do that by optimizing the writing on those pages. And then there are a lot of technical ways behind the scenes that we can optimize a website so that they are found as highly as possible on Google. And we're all very lucky because we work for a brand that is quite well known and trusted worldwide. Therefore, oftentimes our pages do appear quite high, but there are still things that we can do to make that even better, which hopefully, next year we can start exploring a little bit more in this group. Okay, last one. What do we mean in marketing by a persona? Is it the Italian word for person? Is it a serious personality disorder? Or is it an imagined person based on an organization's consumers? It could be, I don't know. So what we call like a buyer persona in marketing would be like if we tried to imagine who are the people who are consuming our product, in our case, our service, what does the average scout look like in terms of demographics? Like how old are they? Or in what age range? Are they boys, girls? What types of things do they like? And so on. All right, that's all for the trivia and introduction to marketing 101. Thank you, Mihailo, for your help. Any questions so far? I will go into a little bit more depth on a few things, but if anyone has questions throughout, you can definitely raise your hand or unmute yourself. So far, so good. Also, Michelle, who just started working with us, told me that she studied marketing. So Michelle, if ever you want to add anything, you can definitely interrupt. All right. All righty. Back to PowerPoint. So nonprofit marketing. Hopefully you've understood from this introduction and the way that I've explained some of these concepts that it is not because we are a nonprofit that we don't have something to sell. So what are we selling in scouting? Do we have a product? Do we have a service? I'm actually putting this question to you so you can actually answer. It can be interactive. You can put it in the chat or you can unmute yourself.
It says put program in the chat.
Yeah, like our youth program. Is that what you mean, Sid? It's okay. Wrong answers are allowed. No judgment. I prefer some wrong answers to no answers. But you guys know me. I can keep talking. If you all love hearing my voice so much, I'll just keep talking. Okay.
I guess our values as well.
Oh, I'm seeing stuff. Yes, yes. Values. Great. There's some answers.
Also like a feel for us, isn't it? We want to create an image, a sentiment.
Yeah, like the types of feelings that we want to evoke in people. I see. Okay, I got some answers here. Badges and merchandise in a very traditional business sense. Yes, we also do have actual merchandise, which is very popular. And then I see some answers in French, which is like our community engagement, our values, our principles, an experience, programs and activities. There we go. Thank you. Events, activities, educational opportunities. Yes, we are selling the whole concept of scouting. That's what we have to do. If our goal is really to continue to grow the movement and to create a better world, then we need to continue having scouts. And that means retaining our members finding new members, engaging volunteers in a continuous cycle, and also getting donations and partnerships, which is all necessary for us. So in the more traditional sense, you have actual merchandise and so on, which helps to fund our programs in a smaller way, but we also have donations. That is also seeking money from people, which comes with its own challenges. Awesome, still more answers coming in. Yeah, education, action, great. Yes. So when we're thinking about that, the questions we want to ask ourselves is, what is our purpose? What problems are we solving? So usually in a traditional business, when they come up with a project, it's with a product, it is to solve a pain point that people are having. You know, I don't know, I really can't sleep well at night, so I need a new mattress or something because I'm really uncomfortable. So I go to the store to look for that, and all of these different mattress companies are going to try to sell me on why theirs is best and why they can solve my problem. That's usually what we're trying to address, is a problem and problem resolution. So in scouting, what is the problem that we're solving? Again, I'm actually putting this question to you. Yeah, so Sid says the purpose is education of young people to be responsible citizens. Yes, very good. Definitely an A+ academic response, Sid. What was that purpose born out of? What was the gap? Like what was identified by BP, you know, 100 years ago, that said there's something missing that we need to respond to, that we need to create a program for?
Creating a better world.
Yes, true. Same answer from Benin. Future leaders, more active citizens needed in communities. The gap in the formal education system. Yeah. So I think that that's definitely one of the important answers, is that in the existing system, somebody somewhere or some people felt that there was a gap. And this is where all NGOs come in, right? We're literally called non-governmental organizations. And that's because there's a government that usually in most countries will have some institutions to try to address the basic needs of people, like education, health, and so on. And then you have non-governmental institutions who come in to fill those gaps. So that's the concept of, you know, where we started, and this purpose that came out of it, of creating more active citizens, of creating a better world. And I think that that motto is very important for us, because creating a better world looks very different in each and every one of your countries, I think, and in each and every one of your communities and in each region. So you see that scouts in different countries or different regions do very different things, actually. You know, a lot of people are surprised to learn how active scouts in Asia Pacific are in responding to humanitarian crises like natural disasters and so on. But that's the gap that they're helping fill, because maybe there's crises on a different scale that needs more people to help address them, or maybe because in a certain country or area they don't have you know, the people or the infrastructure in place to respond to those without having so many volunteers to help. So we are filling these gaps, and I think it's really important then that when we are marketing scouting, we can talk about those, like what we are actually helping to do with that in mind. So not necessarily saying that you need to go out there and say like, we're here to fill this gap, but have that sort of spirit in mind, that the community would function very differently if scouts weren't there to fill these gaps. Okay, so just a quick overview of nonprofit marketing activities. So the main difference in terms of consumers is, for us, consumers are potential members, volunteers, and donors. The things that we need marketing for are for promoting scouting and its message, for fundraising and forming partnerships, for increasing our membership, for engaging volunteers, for driving political and social change, as is our mission. And I'm sure we could think of more reasons as well. There are a few challenges, though, that are specific to the nonprofit sector. The three that you'll usually hear about from other organizations are the fact that when you're selling a product like, a mattress or whatever it might be, the person who's buying it usually gets something in return that they can hold in their hand. And it's very easy for them to realize, I spent this much money, but this is what I have. We don't have a tangible product that we are giving in return for a donation, for example, or for somebody's time. And of course, we all know that you get something out of it, like, spiritually and socially and so many other ways that we get something out of volunteering. But it definitely is harder to sell people who are not or have not been volunteers and so on that concept. So that's a challenge. And then, as I'm sure many of you know, in many organizations, there are no staff or not enough staff to actually do marketing. And on top of that, there is usually little to no budget to do marketing, whereas a company like Apple, Netflix, and so on would have teams of over 100 people just doing social media, let alone everything else. So
before you try to compare yourself to anybody else, any other company that
Sorry, Lynn, your audio seems
it's just the global nature of the organization means that we have a huge volume of initiatives, programs, and events that we need to promote and in multiple languages for many of us. And we can't underestimate what a huge challenge that is. So first, just give yourself a pat on the back for everything that you have done so far.
Lynn, can you hear me?
And marketing because
Lynn,
right.
your audio seems to have changed. There we go. That's a lot better. There was something over your mic, I think. Can you hear me?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, that's a lot better now. Back to normal.
Sorry, I had a little Bluetooth connection issue. Okay, I don't know how long you couldn't hear me for.
It wasn't long. It was only about like maybe the last 30 seconds or so.
Okay, cool, thanks. Okay, so I want to share with you today 3 things that you can start doing now in order to start to have more of that marketing mindset in mind. Some of them, I'm sure that if you've been to my social media workshops, you've heard me talk about before, but we'll go into a little bit more depth. And they are important. That's why they're coming up again. So bear with me and just let's be open to thinking about things in a new way. So the first one, the first one is identify your audience. Make sure you know who you're talking to. We'll get into each in detail in a moment. The second is write with purpose. Turn your marketing objectives into calls to action. And the third one is focus your energy and prioritize quality over quantity. So let's chat a little bit about audience. This is the one I'll spend the most time on today. Again, you can drop any questions that pop up in the chat if you have any. So the key question when we're thinking about audience is, who are you talking to? So let's think about why it's important to know your audience. The first is, as somebody who works in communications or marketing, it is your responsibility to communicate in a way that will get the attention of the people you want to reach. So you can't put the onus on the person who's on social media, inundated with a million different messages, to read yours, regardless of whether or not your content is good or speaks to them. It's really up to you and all of us to do a little bit of work and put in some effort to make sure that we write in a way that is appealing to our audience and that we share imagery and video that are appealing to them. So that means, yeah, like I just said, tailoring your message to that audience. That means the channels you choose to use, the mediums, the words, the images, and so on. I'm going to give you a fun example. I really love this one. This is from Netflix, and I'll share the link after to this video by Vox. But they made a little video where they studied how Netflix helps you. Netflix will say that they're there to help you choose what to watch, which fair enough, right? Because there are literally thousands of options on Netflix, and we've all spent a lot of time sitting in front of it just browsing, trying to pick what to watch. But one of the ways that Netflix is actually helping you decide is by tailoring the image that they put on the cover of the different movies and TV options for you. So case in point, their tailored cover art, if we look at their examples from Stranger Things, so you can look on the right side and see this is like a selection of artwork that they did. They have this whole really fancy AI system that first goes through all, I think it's 80,000 frames for one episode of Stranger Things, selects what might make for a good frame for them to cut out for the cover. And then they look at their demographics. They look at what types of things have you watched in the past? What types of shows do you tend to love? And then you'll see that they will categorize them based on what you actually are interested in. So if you tend to watch a lot of like kind of retro nostalgia type of shows, they'll pick something that brings up that sentiment for you. So you'll see in the first one, Ghostbusters type of feeling to it. If you're more of a suspense and thriller type of person, you would get served this middle one. And if you're into horrors, then you get served this last one. And then they also shared a few other examples here, where if you're a comedy fan, they would feature one of the actors who's a known comedian on a cover, like this for Good Will Hunting, versus if you're more of a romance fan, they would pick a more romantic scene to share with you. And they do this all based on things that you have watched before. So like you can see in the bottom left side here, they'll kind of put in a mixture of what you've seen and what does that mean for what you get served. So clearly they have, again, so much more resources and money and technology than we will ever have access to. But we're also lucky because we know our audience very well, and we don't have to necessarily go to that granular level of research to know who they are. So I just think it's interesting to see how we can actually tailor our message to our audience, and that is something that we can just take into account. So not to stress too much about having to go to that level of detail, but just to see how it can actually be done and how much of a difference it actually makes for people. I don't know, did you guys know that they were tailoring their artwork for you? Yeah. Does this freak you out, or does it make you happy? Because they're trying to make your life easier. Technically, that's what we're doing in marketing, but we also stay longer.
It explains a lot with my Netflix account.
Yeah. So we're all going to go to Netflix after this workshop and investigate. Okay. All right. So what does this mean in scouting? It just means that we can put a little bit of thought into the type of imagery that we're sharing, right? So who are we talking to? What kind of message are we trying to share? And sorry, I just saw Nika's comment. That's why it's fun to mess with the algorithm on your friends' Netflix accounts, especially if you don't have your own account. Yeah, so it depends on the message, the medium where you're sharing something. You know, LinkedIn has a very different look. It's a little bit more corporate. If you're sharing a message about like a partnership or something, you know, there might be a time and place for something more like in the bottom right corner. But generally speaking, my choice in scouting is to always go with the imagery that is more youth focused and more sort of playful, including in the language that we use, and service oriented, like this photo. But if we look at this, who's our audience when we look at these photos? If we were looking at these people, like who is the audience, say in this picture all the way on the left side? If we were saying that these people are our audience, who are they? Children. Yeah, so bottom left here, specifically Cub Scouts. So it's really helpful when we're doing audience to even just think as granular as you can. Cub Scouts, and in this case, we know that they are Cub Scouts in Africa, in Kenya specifically. If we look just to the right of that image, we have 2 scouts and what looks like probably a parent and also a scout leader, right? So we also have parents, scout leaders. Who else can we identify besides scouts, Cubs, Scout leaders, and parents. Yeah, you're right, Patrick, that's Jota in Brazil during the lockdown. Anyone else we can identify in any of these photos that we haven't named yet?
Partners?
Yes, exactly. Bottom middle, we have partner featured. And bottom right, there's one more that we haven't mentioned. Yeah, professionals, I would say like actually staff and volunteers of our own, whether that's at your level, at the NSO level, or in this picture, that's at the global level. And donors, yeah, Nika, like we couldn't necessarily identify a donor just by looking at a photo, but surely there is somebody in these photos who is donating as well, and we have to keep them in mind. So this comes back to the challenges that I mentioned earlier. It's such a huge organization. There are so many different considerations and so many audiences. Can we speak to all of them at once? Not in a way that is personable. So in general, we usually are speaking to young people. We're keeping the youthful voice because we know that if you are a Scout leader, an employee, a volunteer, a Scout parent, or a donor for Scouting, that you will still understand and be attracted to that like youthful vibe, because that's what we're all about. We are a youth movement. But of course, there's going to be some channels and spaces where we might take a more formal tone, for example, like Twitter or LinkedIn. But even then, we do allow ourselves to be a little bit more playful because of our youth brand. So that's like I guess when I'm speaking there, it's specifically about social media. But of course, there are other channels besides social media. We have email marketing, which I think is important for many NSOs. It's probably how many of you communicate directly with your membership. And again, the tone, in my opinion, can still be quite light and quite fun because we are a youth movement. So I wouldn't be too shy about that and try to keep things too formal. I think that people are really moving away from that, those formalities, attachments and emails and things like that, attaching letters to emails. So starting to move away from formality a little bit and into a space where people feel like they're talking to a friend. That's really where we're at in marketing these days. You probably noticed that a lot of the emails that you receive now are even personalized with your name on them, or it will sound like they were written directly to you. I have to break your heart and tell you they probably were not written directly to you, but they're just written in a way that really feels that way. And that's because of some great marketing writers. Let me just plug this in 1 second. So I think I'm almost done with the audience piece here. But I did want to share an example of how we use those demographic details. So I talked about things that were more related to like age, gender, and so on. But besides that, we can also look at interests. So this is an example. If you look at the bottom of this screenshot on the left side, some of the interests that I would select when making an Facebook ad for Scouting. This was promoting one of our environmental initiative, the Project for the Planet, actually, which is currently open. If you know any young people who have a great idea for a project for the environment. So challenge, again, on the global level is that we have to select countries when we do ads. And that's not really easy to do when you have 172 member organizations. So often we'll look at where is organic or unpaid content, not reaching people, and then we'll look at this as a way to sort of boost that content. Of course, it takes budget to run ads, so I know some of you can't do that, but nationally with a very, very small budget, like even $100 or $200, you can actually get a lot out of ads. So if ever it's something you want to explore and brainstorm, again, feel free to chat with me. And the amazing thing with this is that you can really find people that fit within the demographics. So in this case, I selected things like scouting, jamboree, summer camp, camping, outdoors, community issues. But then because this was specifically for an environmental project, I also put in things like nature, climate justice, environmental science, and so on. And there is an interest category for scouting generally, and you might find one specific to your country or your language as well. So you can always look even deeper into those in your country. Okay, what's next? Are there any questions on audience before I move on? All right. Writing with purpose. So the key question I ask here is, what action do you want your audience to take? Now that you know who they are or who you're writing for, again, you're gonna have to put some thought into that for yourself and for what channels you're using. Once you decide who your audience is, you need to know what action you want them to take so that you can really write with purpose to them. So, what are the marketing objectives in scouting? There are many options. I'm going to share 5 examples with you of very general, high-level ones. The first is to create brand awareness. So I talked about this earlier. I said it's very important because if people don't know what it is, and if they find it confusing, or if they don't trust the brand, then they're not going to take any of these next steps that we want to achieve. I also want to add one more thing about brand awareness for scouting. One challenge that we have in terms of brand awareness is that the term scouting is not unique to us, right? So if you search on Twitter, for example, for scouting, or even hashtag scouts, you will find 2 other things there. One is, I don't know if you guys already know them. One is sporting related things, so scouting for baseball and so on. And the other is modeling. So if people are scouting for like modeling models for different jobs. So I will say that the majority of posts that I see usually are related to scouts, but also the sport industry uses this a lot, and that can actually be a little bit confusing. So one of the important things for brand awareness is that when you say a word like that, people know what category to put you in. So for example, if I say Toyota, you know that it's a car or it's related to cars. And sometimes that can be challenging for us, depending which country you're in, which region you're in. Sometimes you have to specify like Boy Scouts or like Girl Scouts or something to qualify it, which is a little bit challenging for us. But that's really only when we're speaking. I think the minute that people see people wearing a scarf or the uniform, that they usually do know. So our brand awareness is quite good. The next general objective is gaining new members. At the global level, we do always say that we want to be the world's largest and leading youth educational movement. So gaining members, of course, is very important for us. And I would add retaining members as well. And you can also include gaining and retaining volunteers there. Driving social change, that is our mission to create a better world. And then the last 2, a bit more on the corporate or business development side, attracting partners and raising money. So this one on the right side, where we're looking for MOP heroes, this would be an example of, for me, driving social change primarily, but also can help in many other areas like creating brand awareness or making it attractive for new members who might also be interested in this type of recognition. And we are working with partners for the MOP Hero initiative. So there's a few, you'll find that a few different elements will come in, but usually with one that's sort of reigning over the others. So how do you take a general objective and turn it into an action? Well, the first thing that you need to do is to kind of have a more specific goal. So I just put in some like random things that I came up with very quickly, but you can get more specific and targeted, of course, depending on whatever your actual goals are. But for creating brand awareness, your sample marketing goal might be something like increase website traffic by 10% over a 6-month period. As you know, setting goals, it's always good to have some specific targets and everyone's favorite word, some KPIs. So it can be useful to have, but it's also really challenging in marketing to know like if you can actually achieve that number. So be feasible, be realistic with yourself. I usually just work based off of benchmarks. So I look at like, what did we do in the last 6 months? What's achievable for the next 6 months, that sort of thing. If you wanted to have an objective around membership growth or retention, it could be something like increasing membership by 5% in the next year. For driving social change, this is where I tie in all of our programs, initiatives, badges, anything related to the youth program, basically. So that in that case, maybe an NSO can be looking for something like 50 signups for Tide Turner's Plastic Challenge this year. In terms of attracting partners, that's again, more on the sort of business development side. It depends on what your NSO is working for. Maybe you really are aiming for a partnership around peace initiatives. And then raising money, that's one of the more traditional marketing approaches. So you can actually have a specific amount that you're targeting, just like we do when we do crowdfunding campaigns and so on, with a timeline that you are hoping to achieve that in. And so what types of actions or tactics can you take in order to help meet those goals? So we go back to brand awareness. If we want to increase website traffic, again, there's so many ways to do this. So I'm just giving you some ideas so you can start framing things a little bit in these marketing terms. But if we're looking to increase website traffic, then we might choose to start writing more regularly for the website. So for example, on scout.org currently, we write quite ad hoc depending on what stories come in, and we're looking to have a more consistent and regular approach to writing, like a minimum once a week, with different types of content that we think will appeal to our audience more broadly, more externally as well, and then to help promote those on social media to drive more people to our website. So that's one tactic that we could take. For membership growth and retention, we could look to other channels. We can find channels to reach parents and outdoor enthusiasts where they might have kids that they're interested in enrolling in scouting, like Facebook groups, things like that. For driving social change, if we were looking to get more signups for Tide Turners, then we can create a video campaign where we demonstrate what is the problem that we're looking to solve, like show what do the coastlines look like where you live? Is there a lot of plastic pollution? I think it's really important for us to also show the problem that we're trying to solve, not only the solution, so that people can understand why it's important that we're there to fill that gap. In terms of attracting partners, and that comes down to more of like thought leadership. So showing what is our leadership in the youth sector or in the non-formal education sector in general? What are our values? What types of actions do we take? We always find on our channels that when we take like value positions or make statements about our values, that tends to really resonate with our audience, and people get really excited about that. But it's also something that shows partners that we are in line, that we're working towards the same thing. And especially because we work so much on the SDGs, and one of the SDGs is all about partnerships to achieve the goals, that's also a really nice way to frame this whole conversation. And then finally, as an example for raising money, we can also do donation campaigns on social media, especially around holidays like Ramadan, Christmas, and so on. These are great opportunities to appeal to people's sense of generosity. So again, these are very high level. None of them would work just on their own, but it's just to get the wheels turning a little bit. So now I'm going to give you some examples of posts that we've done, and I want you to tell me which objective you think they are helping meet. So get your fingers ready to type. Okay. So these are I'll keep the objectives here for your reference. All right, first one. This was an Instagram reel, 5 peace building activities for young people. And we shared in this video, which has an article also connected to it, 5 activities that you can do with scouts to help build peace. So which of these objectives do you think that's helping achieve? Sid says, drive social change. Do we agree? Yes, I agree. I would say that that is the main objective with that one. It's also very practical. It's something that like school teachers could also be interested in, or other parents could be interested in, and definitely speaks to Scout leaders. It's time to nominate your heroes. I already gave you a hint about where I think this fits in. What do you think? This is for Messengers of Peace heroes. Yeah, I think this one can reach quite a few of these different objectives. I think it's also strongly related to driving social change, but I definitely agree that there is a brand awareness piece there. And especially that, we've been making reels that I think are generally just a little bit more fun and personable and featuring young people. That's going to really help with that brand awareness piece. And attracting partners, I think it's also a very attractive program to help with partners as well. Membership growth and retention, yeah, I think it would help make it more attractive as well for outsiders. Okay, how about this one? This is a video that we circulated on International Volunteer Day, all about thanking the volunteers across the movement. Which objective is this helping? Yeah, definitely about membership retention in this case. And this is an important one, so never forget it. And don't only do it on International Volunteer Day, but saying thank you goes such a long way. And I'm sure I don't have to tell you that. And Scouts in Czechia supporting relief efforts for Ukraine. Yep, Sid, you're up there on the scoreboard for sure. Drive social change. Yep, attracting partners, as we know, many of us know we did actually attract partners through these types of initiatives, with a partnership with UNICEF in Europe to help us continue to support our Scouts in Ukraine and their relief efforts. What else do we have here? But yeah, we also raised a lot of money, the most money that we've ever raised in the Scout donation platform. And having these types of initiatives and being able to show them definitely helped us achieve that goal, or I would say surpass that goal by a lot. So it did help with a lot of things, but I would say number one is driving social change, and then attracting partners and raising money became a big part of it. And then because of how high profile everything has been with Ukraine, also for sure creating brand awareness, and particularly brand awareness around the fact that Scouts participate in humanitarian action. All right, I have many more examples, but I'm gonna move on because I'm running out of time. It's okay because the last one is very short. Focus your energy. And this is a little bit on a different topic, but are we trying to do too much? So I'm giving you some sleepy Scouts who have worked way too hard to just remind you that there is only so much that one person can do. And I know that in many of your cases, you are just one person. In many of your cases, you are a volunteer. So thank you for all of your efforts. But do try to focus your efforts on what is most important. Don't try to do it all. In marketing, there are about 1 million channels. And as Angel can attest to you, there are also 1 million new features always popping up on them. And we're doing our best to keep up from World Scouting, and we're doing our best to help inform you about changes and what's worth jumping on and so on. But what I suggest you do is focus your attention where it is most useful for you. I think in most of your cases, an NSO would have a very valuable email list with your membership. That's important. Foster that. That is a direct link with people that not everyone has, so definitely do continue to use some of your energy for that. If you're keeping a website, of course, you want to keep it up to date. You want to keep it with quality information and so on. For those NSOs who have blogs, they are beautiful. Keep them coming. Make sure that your content is written with purpose, as we just talked about. And then pick just one social media channel that you put most of your effort into. Don't try to do them all. You can post to more than one social media channel, but have one that is like the baby that you take care of, and the rest that are like, you know, plants that you water sometimes. You know, if that's what you need to do in order to maintain your sanity, do that. That's okay. And utilize all of the resources that we have for you on Trello and so on, so that you can kind of repurpose content that we're giving to you, and also repurpose your own content. So if you're an NSO that writes blogs, for example, a blog can become so many different types of content. So when we write one story, for example, we published a story yesterday about a scout named Ivy. She's actually just arrived in Kale recently as one of our new interns. And she did a really great project. It received funding from the Global Youth Mobilization and funding from the Scout Donation Platform. She did a great project in Kenya supporting pregnant teenagers and helping them continue their education and get into entrepreneurship. And so now we have this really nice story about her project. We have great photos that we managed to capture during a site visit. And from that, we were able to schedule, you know, multiple social media posts for the next months to come, which you can even do like through through Meta now, Meta's Creator Studio, our Facebook Creator Studio. You can do that the minute you have a blog post, like create some social media content from it, take 5 or 10 minutes, schedule them ahead for the next few months. It's okay to post more than once about the same thing. You can find a different way to say it later on. And it's likely that whoever sees that in 2 months didn't see it when you posted it the first time. But you can also do things like create videos or invite somebody that you wrote about in for a live stream one day. There's so many different options. So yeah, don't be shy to repurpose the same thing multiple times, or go back a few years and see some cool stories that you shared before and how you can share them again. And then Erin said that the Meta Planner is very helpful to plan and schedule posts. Yeah, I definitely agree. It can be a bit glitchy, but we can make it. So I would love to know if you have other aspects of marketing that you would like to go into more depth. There's like so many different areas. We can talk about like content marketing, email marketing, social media, video, public speaking, event marketing. So if any of these areas appeal to you, you feel you would benefit to learn more, please let us know in the chat. You can also always reach out by email. And then I see that we're an hour in now, so I'm happy to stick around and answer any questions that you may have. Any questions? Or what questions do you have for me?
Thank you so much, Lynn. That was really great. I have a question, if I may. I wanted to ask more about symmetry. So you know how you were talking about like different goals and stuff. Like obviously through scouting, we have shared goals and a shared mission, but NSOs obviously have different priorities. So how do we balance this need for individuality, but also the need for a united marketing front and messages?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, and it brings up a good point as well, which I kind of forgot to mention, and that is that at World Scouting and at NSO, we have different audiences. At World Scouting, we have multiple audiences, and I think we play a role in also helping establish the reputation of Scouting worldwide. So we will still speak directly to young people, which is a bit confusing for social media because really our main audience, we are a service organization for NSOs. So we also have a huge internal marketing job to do, which is actually what Maya does a lot of for us at World Scouting. So it can be a little bit confusing, and I'm sure that for your NSO as well, sometimes it's confusing to know who exactly are we talking to? Is it more institutional? Is it more to speak to young people? So yeah, I'm saying, what is the main target audience that you think NSO should focus on? So in terms of symmetry, I think that we can all do the same thing when it comes to talking about scouting and the role that scouting plays in the world to create a better world. That's one place that's easy for us to all be on the same page, because that is a broad enough mission and a beautiful mission. Like, nobody can argue with how great that is. Whether you're in Africa or Inter-America or Eurasia or wherever you might be in the world. And then you have a job to do to market your own programs, whether those are the ones with World Scouting, or if you have other badge programs and educational programs, then you should definitely be marketing those, and that's to young people, but also to parents and volunteers. And it'll depend on the focus that you have, right? If you're in an NSO where membership has dropped a lot in recent years, maybe that's your focus. So maybe you're more in a recruitment mode, and that can change year to year as well. You know, if you're feeling very comfortable with membership, then speak directly to your members.
If anyone else has any questions, please do put them in the chat, or, you know, now is the time to raise your hand. Whilst everyone's kind of thinking, I have another question. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm kind of hogging the questions. In your last slide, you said to, last slide or near the end, where you said to highlight 3 main channels. I think one of the hardest things that we struggle with in comms and marketing and this whole area is that we want to be everywhere at the same time, all at once.
Yeah,
and
talking to everyone.
Yeah, exactly. So is there, you know, obviously you mentioned, you know, like for time or anything, you know, to stick to these kind of 3 main channels. Like, do you then, like, how do you compensate for the fact that you might be missing out on some audiences?
Well, when I say that, it's because I just don't think it's realistic to expect an NSO to be everywhere all the time. It doesn't mean like never post to Twitter, but it just means it's okay if Twitter is not your #1 priority as an NSO. I understand. But if that's really working for you, of course, maybe that is your focus area. I have seen NSOs that do really well there. So I think one thing that you'll learn more about next month when you come to the workshop with Angel next month, where we talk about social media strategy, is she'll give you some ideas about how to choose that channel for you and how to know if what you're doing is working. And that's also really important. We don't have time to talk about it too much today, but it's like looking at your data, and it doesn't take long. I know it sounds scary to look at data, but 5 minutes, 10 minutes of like peeking at some data in the Meta Studio, and you'll see what's working and what's not. So you don't have to spend more time doing the things that are not working. Conserve your energy for what is working. So yeah, when I say choose the channels, it doesn't mean don't do anything else. It just means have 3 that you really nurture, and then the others might be on the side. And then my answer to the question of what to do about that is to accept it. You can't do everything. We do our best. Don't kill yourself doing it. That's all.
Susanna has a question in the chat. How do you talk about marketing with the leaders of NSOs? It's not realistic to talk to everybody.
With the leaders of NSOs? You mean?
Like to talk, yes, to focus, for them to focus, like to convince them to focus into a whole objective, like, because normally people know that scouting goes to everybody, but whenever I start talking about how to focus, I just lose them. It's like, no.
Yeah, no, that's a really big challenge, especially for everyone who doesn't work in communications as well. You know, we see it all the time. Like Maya just said, everyone wants to be everywhere and speak to everyone. And I completely understand that, because our message and the work that we're doing can sometimes be applicable to everyone. My point is not that they can't be there or can't listen or can't follow if they're really interested, but that we have to just put a little bit more focus in terms of how we craft that messaging so that we are addressing the key audience that we want to reach. In our case, most of the time that key audience is scouts, young people. It's not always the case. It might be different for you, but I feel like it's not too hard, because even if we do focus on scouts, we're still reaching scout leaders, and we're giving them the material in a language and in a way that they can take and directly share with their scouts when it is scout leaders. And for us, mostly on Facebook, we are reaching that age group. Scout leaders, and on Instagram, slightly younger. And now we have to start looking at, where we're going to go next, and that's going to keep changing. So yeah, I'm not really answering your question. I don't think that's because I don't necessarily have an answer. Let me see what Frank's saying, see if it's related. Marketing isn't a common topic that we discuss and play in scouting, especially in trainings and meetings. So if we have any document or video on that, could be helpful. Yeah, we'll definitely work on some stuff that we can share and have in the service platform coming up. This is a little bit new role for us as well at World Scouting. So I definitely don't have all the answers, but I'm trying to help us kind of just redirect and refocus some of that attention to help us see how we can get more of those conversions, how we can get people to take action, how we can measure things so that we actually know when people have, downloaded our resources, joined our programs, and so on. Yeah, Michelle, answer some questions for me.
Hello. I'm actually gonna make like a little commercial here. So we have the WOSM services platform, which they're all available for NSOs to come and make a diagnosis of your whole organization. So if you go through the service platform, you can actually get some consultants and people that can help you to make a whole diagnosis of your NSO and to see where are you going to focus your energy. This energy that Lynne was talking about, of like quality versus quantity. So in this platform, you can go in and you can assess. It's called the main tool is called GSAT, and it is designed to make a diagnosis of your NSO, and it will direct you to whatever, either if it's the youth program or if you have to focus more on diversity and inclusion or anything that comes out from there. And then there you can focus all your marketing strategies and all your marketing approach. Also there is going to tell you if you need to talk more to your adults in scouting, to your leaders, to people who volunteer. So I guess it is a good starting point to start looking at what can we talk about in your NSO specifically.
Yeah, that's a really good point and connection to make. Thank you, Michelle. Yes, so that's actually a really good starting point, and perhaps even a better starting point than going to putting in a comms request for services is to actually start with your GSAT. That could be a great starting point. And that said, after that or before that, whatever you would like, you can always put in a service request for communications. We don't get that many, and we are, full of a great team of volunteers and staff who can assist and are really happy and excited to brainstorm with you and work with you. So, for the regional colleagues on the call, help us continue to pass on that message to our NSOs, and for the NSOs here, you can reach out and make a service request. We're looking forward to helping you. So since I know we're over time, I'm just going to remind you to please stay engaged in the Facebook group. Send us your ideas for Scoutfluencers. We are also looking to engage more micro influencers. So if you know any scouts that are very active in your NSO who are active on social media, please forward me their names. I'm looking to reach out to more young people so we can collaborate on social media. And then, as you know, you can join us on the last Thursday of every month. And Maya, do you want to run quickly through what's coming?
Yes, thank you so much. So we've set the calendar for, yes, as Lynne said, for the next 6 months. Next month is going to be Angel delivering a session on the social media strategy. And then we have a special guest in August. One of our influencers will be joining us to discuss video interviews. We have a preview of Jota Joti in September, which is something that we do every year. So it's just before the event itself. We like to have a little preview of that. And then into October, Mihailo, I think this one's yours, right? It's the free digital tools. Hey. And then into November, we have safe digital events. And to wrap up the year a little bit earlier than normal because of the year-end holidays, we have a comms town hall, which is just a nice sort of relaxed time where we can sit and chat and discuss, comms related issues or whatever it is.